almost no safety features, no runoff and no barriers, just a forest and fate. It took just 2 years to finish. And when it opened in 1927, the press called it the Green Hell. But the locals had another nickname, the Berlin of racetracks. Overbuilt, oversized, and completely brutal by design.
Seat belts optional. Huh? What are we doing?
Polite way of saying flats. Sounds innocent. It's not. This is where cars take off. Literally, a slight crest, a blip in the tarmac. And suddenly you're not driving anymore. You're flying. No downforce, no traction, just
boom. Big Rod HKJ3. Today we have why F1 had to abandon Nurburgring Nordschleife.
You. The Nurburgring Nordschleife wasn't just a racetrack. It was a monument, a flex, a 13-mile, 154-corner temple to speed and suffering. In the early 1920s, Germany was clawing its way back from the wreckage of World War I. Its economy was wrecked. Its image, worse. But it still had one thing going for it. Fast cars and fearless drivers. So the government came up with a plan. Build a racetrack so massive, so dangerous, so unhinged, that the rest of the world would have no choice but to notice. Yeah, that tracks. Construction started in 1925 near the village of Nurburg. Thousands of workers, many of them unemployed World War I veterans, were sent into the Eifel Mountains with picks, shovels, and dynamite. They carved the track by hand, moved over 300,000 cubic meters of earth, laid down 22.8 kilometers of asphalt, and added almost no safety features, no runoff and no barriers, just a forest and fate. It took just 2 years to finish. And when it opened in 1927, the press called it the Green Hell. But the locals had another nickname, the Berlin of racetracks. Overbuilt, oversized, and completely brutal by design. Before Formula One even existed, this place was Grand Prix racing. The German Grand Prix ran here from the start, long before F1 had a name. And it wasn't just a race. It was a proving ground for gods. Names like Rudolf Caracciola, who won here 6 times, more than anyone in history. Or Tazio Nuvolari, who in 1935 pulled off a victory that still gets whispered about. Nuvolari's car broke down. His fuel pump failed. His chances? 0. But the guy pushed. He drove like the laws of physics didn't apply. And against the might of the German auto unions and Mercedes-Benz, he won. In Germany, in front of Hitler. Yeah, it got awkward. These early years were the Nordschleife's baptism. Rain, fog, gravel, steel. You didn't just drive it, you survived it. And that was the whole point. This wasn't a place built for comfort. It was built to test limits of cars, of drivers, of human endurance itself. By the time Formula One came knocking in 1951, the track already had a reputation. And as you're about to see, F1 would only make it worse. In 1951, Formula One officially rolled into the Nordschleife, and from the moment the lights went out, everyone realized something. This place wasn't just hard, it was insane. Forget Monaco's glamour, forget Monza's speed, and this was something else entirely. 13 miles of pure punishment. A track where every lap felt like Russian roulette at 160 miles per hour. And in those early years, nobody even knew what safety meant. Seatbelts, optional. Marshals, maybe. Runoff, that was just a...
Seatbelts, optional. What are we doing?
Polite way of saying tree. But still, F1 kept coming back, every year, because the drivers loved it. Why? Because winning here meant something. It meant you weren't just fast, you were brave. Fangio, Moss, Hawthorne, they all took it on, and they all agreed. Nothing else came close. But here's the thing. The Nordschleife wasn't just dangerous, it was unforgiving. From the very first years of F1 at the ring, it was already claiming lives. 1954, Onofre Marimon, dead at Breitscheid. 1958, Peter Collins, thrown from his car, died in the forest. 1961, Wolfgang von Trips and 15 spectators. His Ferrari clipped Jim Clark's Lotus, went airborne, and tore into the crowd at Flugplatz. Brutal, tragic, but nobody dared question the track. Because this was the ultimate test. If you didn't make it, the world whispered about your bravery. If you did, you were a god. And still, the drivers lined up every year, knowing full well what the Green Hell had in store. This wasn't racing, this was survival theater. And the Nordschleife? It was both the stage and the executioner. Next, we're diving into the corners that turned F1 into chaos. Flugplatz. Bergwerk, Carousel, Schwedenkreuz, and yeah, it only gets scarier from here. Let's get one thing straight.
Carousel.
The Nurburgring Nordschleife wasn't just long, it was alive. This track had moods, it had secrets, and it had a body count.
I
You
did
could leave
not
pit lane
believe
under
that
sunshine
video
and hit a
was real.
hailstorm 10 miles later. Grip, inconsistent. Visibility, a coin toss. Elevation change,
What
try
do you
300 meters of
mean?
vertical chaos. But if the
What
Nordschleife
do you
was
mean
known for one thing
visibility?
above all, it was the corners. Let's talk about the ones that made F1 drivers rethink everything.
Okay.
Flugplatz. Sounds innocent. It's
Flugplatz.
not. This is where
Whoa.
cars take off. Literally, a slight crest, a blip in the tarmac. And suddenly you're not driving anymore. You're flying. No downforce, no traction, just hope. Jackie Stewart called it the most terrifying takeoff in motorsport. In the 60s and 70s, it claimed more than a few who
Okay,
didn't
probably
land
'cause it's
properly. You get it
uphill.
wrong at Flugplatz, you're airborne. Then you're in the trees.
Lord.
Schwedenkreuz. A high-speed left, blind, no runoff, no mercy. Drivers hit it flat out in fifth. No margin for error. Slide wide, and it's either Armco or nothing. In 2001, long after F1 had left, a touring car went airborne here and hit a photographer. Now imagine that in the
Damn.
1950s, with drum brakes and wire wheels. You weren't just brave, you were playing with
And
fate.
no seatbelt.
Bergwerk. Not as fast, but far more sinister. This is where cars die, and sometimes, so do drivers. A tightening right-hander with deceptive camber and zero visibility. You arrive fast, but the exit vanishes behind a wall of trees. This is where Niki Lauda crashed in 1976.
That
A
corner
moment of
looks
hesitation,
deadly.
a twitch, and then hell. Bergwerk doesn't hit you like a hammer. It lures you in, then tears you apart. Carousel. The most iconic corner in all of racing, a brutal banked concrete bowl that rattles your spine and your soul. It wasn't designed, it was discovered by accident when a driver cut inside the corner and found grip in the dirt. Now, it's infamous. Every F1 car that ever raced here has gone through it, and every driver has cursed it. Jim Clark once said it felt like being punched in the kidneys while the car tried to throw you out of the seat. And those, they're just 4 corners. The Nordschleife has 154, some fast,
gotta
some
try it
wide,
out.
some
Just
hiding
because he said
gravel,
that, we need
moss,
to try it
or
out.
worse. Now add fog.
We gotta feel
rain,
all
heat,
these feelings
hail,
that
all
they
in the same
feeling.
lap. Yeah, it was basically like
need to
racing through
feel
Middle
all
Earth
of
in a
this.
hurricane. The Nürburgring
Gotta get
didn't
the
try to be
full
dangerous.
experience.
It just was. Next,
That's
we
really
enter the
what
50s through the
matters.
70s, where legends like
You racing and
Fangio,
you
Clark,
like
and Stewart
cars, you
went to
gotta
war
get
on
the
the
full
green hell.
experience. You racing, you like cars, we gotta get the full experience. I gotta hit the track.
And one man
That's it.
finally had enough. If the Nürburgring was hell, then the
Gotta hit the
1950s to
track.
70s were the decades when Formula One decided to build condos there. This wasn't the era of simulator
on.
laps or data analysts. This was the era of raw talent, leather helmets, and drivers lighting up a cigarette before climbing into a death trap on wheels. And no one danced with the devil quite like Juan Manuel Fangio. 1957. He was 46 years old, driving a Maserati
46.
250F. Facing off against the dominant Ferraris of Mike Hawthorne and Peter Collins. Fangio started from pole, but
Drifting
mid-race,
that thing.
disaster, a slow pit stop. He rejoined 48 seconds behind.
The 2 Ferraris lead and still the pit stop is on. And just look at Fangio calmly and implacably putting on new goggles as he sets off to do another 10 laps around
Oh, that
this
looked
incredibly
janky.
demanding Nürburgring circuit. And
they
he
gotta
is
push him off.
45 seconds down on the 2 flying Ferraris as he goes off with 10 laps to go.
Game over, right? Wrong. What happened next is still considered the greatest drive in Formula One history. Fangio started hunting, and every
What?
lap, he shattered the
It had
Nordschleife
to
lap
be
record.
over.
He drove like a man possessed.
All the time, Fangio has been breaking the lap record. Now he's got to go faster and faster to close up the gap on the
But
Ferraris.
these cars
let alone
are
take
crazy
them.
fast with no safety.
Can Fangio win his 5th World
Going
Championship
160
by
around
winning the
corners
German Grand Prix? Hawthorne
no
leads in the
seat
Ferrari.
belts.
With 1 lap to go, he caught them, passed both Ferraris, and won the race.
And there's still a full lap to
No.
go at the end of this one. The Ferrari leads the Maserati, leads the Ferrari. Mike
160
Hawthorne.
with no seat belts.
Fangio. And now
See,
Fangio's
I don't
going
know
to
about
challenge
that.
Mike Hawthorne for the lead.
That part that y'all can have that one. When you got
And
me
he
to the real
leads.
races.
Juan Manuel Fangio is in the lead on the last lap of the German Grand Prix.
Later, he said, I had never driven like that before, and I knew I never would again. He also
Ooh,
said he was
see?
never the same after that race. And honestly, who would be? Then came Jim Clark. the smoothest,
know.
silkiest.
And there was no one who
You
could
gotta
catch
hit
Clark.
some crazy speeds on
Maybe the
a
most naturally
dangerous
gifted
track.
driver to ever live. He didn't fight the Nordschleife. He
With
glided
no
through it.
seat belt.
Winner at 99.79 miles an hour.
He made it look
No,
easy
seatbelt is
until
crazy.
it
I
wasn't,
don't care
because
what
under the
y'all
grace,
saying.
there was always that shadow, the risk, the randomness.
Let me know
which
in the
brings
comments,
us to Jackie
man.
Stewart.
Let me know in the comments if y'all would attend this Nurburgring back then with no seatbelt.
Where Clark was elegance,
Let me
Stewart
know.
was calculation.
Through the forest, it's very difficult. You're travelling at very high speeds, up to more than 170 miles
Car
an
still
hour. The
look
car
fire,
leaping
though.
off the road
Look at the
in some
wheels. The
occasions.
wheels almost
Focused,
bigger than
practical,
the car.
and eventually furious. Because Stewart saw the truth. This track didn't test drivers. It killed them. It wasn't bravery. It was stupidity. We were racing in lethal conditions. Jackie Stewart. Every
Lethal
year, someone died.
conditions.
In F1, in the junior
Damn.
series, in warm-ups, in practice. It didn't matter. You watched a teammate die, and then you raced the next day. That's just how it worked. There were no helicopters, no barriers, no fire marshals past turn 3.
No
and the
type of
Nordschleife,
safety.
it had zero mercy.
Yeah,
In
I don't know about
1968,
this one,
Joe
guys.
Schlesser crashed and broke his wrist.
You gotta
Locals
back it
dragged
up.
him from the forest on foot. In 1970, Piers Courage died at Zandvoort.
Ooh.
2 weeks later, Stewart was back at the ring. He'd had enough. Jackie Stewart led the charge for driver
Okay, look
safety.
at the
And
cars
he didn't
now,
whisper.
them boys
He raged.
nice.
He called the Nurburgring
Get
a
nicer
relic,
every year.
demanded guardrails, marshals, and medical response. The FIA just laughed him off. Fans booed him and called him soft, said he was ruining the sport, but he kept going because he'd seen too much. And just as the world started to shift, the sport
yeah,
didn't.
like that.
Which brings us to 1976, the year everything broke.
Oh man. Here
Because
we
if
go.
Stewart warned them, Lauda would be the one who proved them right.
Here we go.
It should have been just another lap, but it wasn't. It was the lap that changed Formula One forever and nearly killed one of its greatest champions.
they probably didn't
August
have a
1st,
halo.
1976, the German Grand Prix at the Nordschleife. Niki Lauda was leading the championship,
no
dominating,
halo. No
unshakable.
halo is
But that
crazy.
morning, something was off. Rain, not unusual for the Nürburgring. The track was still wet, but the fear was already knee-deep. Lauda tried to cancel the race. He begged the other drivers, "This track
Damn.
isn't safe. Not anymore." Some agreed. Most didn't. They voted to race anyway, including Lauda. Yeah, even Lauda changed his vote. And it nearly cost him everything. It started going wrong before the lights even went out. A light shower had passed.
man.
Most drivers, including Lauda, started on rain tires. Big mistake. The track dried almost instantly. So at the end of lap 1, Lauda dove into the pits to switch to slicks. He was angry, focused, chasing time. Lap 2, full send. Then it happened. Approaching Bergwerk, 180 kilometers per hour. Rear snaps. The Ferrari hits the embankment.
Rear
Fuel tank
snaps.
explodes. And in an instant, Lauda's car is a fireball.
Oh man.
Silence.
Back snapped.
Nürburgring, the major problem I had was the weather. Like today, can rain. One part of Nürburgring be dry and using slick tires. If you get on a damp part, you have zero chance to recover.
Slicks and it's wet, it's over
the
with.
tires from wet to dry very soon, one of the first. That strategically was a very good move, but unfortunately the circuit was still wet.
Another driver, Harold Ertl, slams into the wreck. Brett Lunger, Guy Edwards,
Big
and
Harold.
Arturo Merzario jump out of their cars. No marshals, no fire truck, just them. Drivers pulling Lauda from the flames with their bare hands. Merzario reaches in, unhooks the harness. Lauda is literally melting. It took 55 seconds to get him out. For Lauda, it felt like forever. He was flown to the hospital. His condition, hopeless. Lauda slipped into a coma. A priest came to read him last rites, but just when the world was ready to say goodbye,
man.
he woke up. His first words, "Tell the priest to go to
Okay,
hell.
he
I'm
made it.
still alive." His face was scarred.
He'd have
His
made
lungs
it.
were destroyed, but his willpower, untouchable. 42 days later, Lauda returned to a Formula
He
One car in
returned.
Monza, still bleeding, still bandaged, still healing. He finished 4th.
It's a
Lauda
real
è in
racer.
pista a Monza per la prima giornata di prove ufficiali del Gran Premio d'Italia.
That crash didn't just break his body, it shattered Formula One's illusion of invincibility. The green hell had gone too far, and even the toughest man in the paddock nearly didn't make it out. After Lauda's crash, there was no more debate.
I couldn't see anything and I was just listening. Must have been in hospital. My wife came into the room where I was lying and she started crying. So, which didn't certainly help me. I told her afterwards, I said,
Three-time
listen, why
world
did you
champion.
cry when when you come
had
in
to
because
go
I
back
felt
and
bad.
get
She said,
his.
unfortunately, I only recognized you on your feet because I was burned so bad in my head and everywhere that she had a shock. And that was the real issue at the time, so I thought, shit, I must fight now to stay alive.
The Nordschleife had
fight,
crossed the
man.
line. It only took 55 seconds of fire to undo 50 years of legacy. The Nurburgring didn't just injure Niki Lauda. It lit a match under the entire Formula One establishment. And when the smoke cleared, the green hell had finally become too hellish.
Damn.
The silence after Lauda's crash was louder than the impact itself.
I don't even know how he got out
Teams
of
were
that.
rattled, drivers were shook. Even the toughest
Without a
guys,
halo.
the ones who used to brag about taming the ring, wanted out. They watched Lauda's helmet melt. They watched him burn on live TV,
Oh
and they
my
realized this could have been any of us. Even Bernie Ecclestone, who had fought to keep the race there, couldn't ignore the backlash. Behind the scenes, team bosses were done. Sponsors were done. Everyone was suddenly very aware of how many cameras had captured that fireball. And the FIA? Well, the FIA did what the FIA always does. They waited, but this time, the pressure didn't stop. Fans were horrified,
the pressure.
not just because Lauda
I would
nearly
be
died,
pissed too.
but because they saw how little had been done to stop it. Newspapers called
Yeah,
it
no
barbaric.
safety.
TV pundits demanded answers.
Like,
Why
leave-
weren't there
leave 'em
marshals
out
at
there.
Bergwerk? Why did it take minutes to reach Lauda with real fire
Where
support? Why were we
is
still racing on
the
a track where the
emergency?
medical plan was good luck? Sponsors started sweating. No one wanted their logo on the next flaming wreck. And Lauda, he spoke up. Even after surviving, he
Yeah,
made it clear
three-time
the
world champion
Nürburgring
gotta
should
speak
never
up.
see a Formula One car again. In the months that followed, the writing was on the wall. The German Grand Prix
over.
needed a new home, somewhere not surrounded by forests and failure. By 1977, Formula One moved to Hockenheim. It was shorter,
Okay.
safer, less mythology, but fewer body
Hockenheim.
bags. There was no official funeral for the Nordschleife, no ceremony, no goodbye. F1 just left quietly
Okay.
and never came back. The green hell was still there, still monstrous. But for Formula One, it had taken too much, and the price of staying was no longer worth the glory. Formula One packed its
They're
bags
too
in
fast,
1976. It left the Nordschleife in the rear view. But you can't just
Yeah,
walk away from a
76,
myth.
we
Look
outta
at any
there.
modern F1 circuit today. Safety cells, runoff zones, medical helicopters. It's all because of what happened at the ring. The Nürburgring was the warning shot, proof that even the bravest
Facts.
drivers aren't invincible.
need all
Since
of that.
1976, the sport evolved. Survival became part of the strategy.
They definitely need all of that. Do y'all know how fast they are going, man? They definitely need all of that.
Because F1 finally understood no one wants to see a world champion burn for a photo finish. So why not return? Suit up, add a halo, and try again.
Add a halo,
because it's
man.
impossible. The ring is too big, too dangerous, and too wild. 154 corners.
wild.
You'd need thousands of marshals, medical teams every
154
kilometer, and even then, you wouldn't fix what it is. Because the Nordschleife isn't a racetrack. It's a beast pretending to be one. And Formula One, it doesn't do beasts anymore.
wanna do that.
Ironically, it's video games that saved it. Ask any sim racer. The Nordschleife isn't just a track, it's a
Video-
rite of
okay.
passage. No assists, no rewind, no mercy. You can't master it, only survive it.
Nordschleife.
And every year, millions try. The Nürburgring never died. It just changed gears. The 24 hours of Nürburgring, chaos on wheels, GT3s, traffic like rush hour in hell. Tourist laps run daily. You can
Gotta
take your
get me a
rental car on the same
GT3.
tarmac Fangio,
No, I'ma just
Lauda,
get me
and
a
Stewart
turbo
once
S,
ruled.
honestly.
It's a public toll road,
I
but
don't
it's
need a
also a holy
GT3.
site. And the people who go there, they don't care that
Give me a
F1
turbo
left.
S.
Because for them, the ring is still the ring. Still green, still hell. F1 outgrew the Nordschleife, but it never outlived it. It's still the yardstick. Still the question every driver secretly asks, could I have handled the ring? And deep down, most hope they'll never find out. Because legends don't need to return, they just need to be remembered.